Hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Stewart, and I am one of the co-founders here at Business Performance USA. And we're honored to have you as our guests and are very happy that you came to hear this topic about listening. It's going to be about how to have better listening skills, and Kathy Wright is here with us today, and we'll talk about her in just a minute. But let me just tell you real quickly about Business Performance USA. We're a group of executive volunteers who wanted to contribute to our communities of interest, and so we formed Business Performance USA and have been holding weekly webinars on Tuesday at noon Central here now for a little more than 2 years. And we've invited people, experts across the industry, and we've had topics ranging from fundraising to, as today, listening skills, leadership skills, building teams. The list goes on. Social media. We've had multiple webinars on social media. And all you need to do is become a member of Business Performance USA, and you can watch any of those at no cost. And you want to do that in the short term because they won't always be free to everyone. You're listening to Cynthia Stewart. I'm managing partner for Evermore Services. I'm your partner in building tomorrow's businesses today, and I'm going to be your host for this hour. And let me go ahead and introduce Kathy. And there you see her pretty smiling face. Kathy is the Chief Operating Officer for the Institute for Conversational Fundraising. And the Institute for Conversational Fundraising equips leaders to dramatically transform their fundraising results. And they are pretty amazing. And what they do is they have an asking academy, and they bring people in to help them learn the art of fundraising through an asking approach and through developing relationships. So they are quite something. Here's Kathy again, and she's listening very intently. Kathy basically has more than 30 years of leadership experience, and she brings insight and wisdom from having worked with literally scores of nonprofit organizations. And she's been renowned for her training programs, some of which she's personally designed for various organizations, but she also is a trained facilitator for DDI, Achieve Global, and is a certified consultant for Peter Drucker Foundation on organizational self-assessment tool. She holds a degree in business management from University of Wisconsin in Madison and Master in Human Relations from the University of Oklahoma. She served as the executive director for both local nonprofits and a national organization, development director for 2 nonprofits, and a volunteer board member for several community organizations. So she has experience on both sides of the board table. And as Chief Operating Officer for the Institute of Conversational Fundraising, she helps organizations transform their fundraising results, just as we said. So let me go ahead and switch presenters. Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over, and let me see if I can make this work properly. There we go. Okay, I'm switching that over to you. Let me know when you... And I am not hearing you, Kathy, if you want to make sure that you're unmuted.
Okay.
Very good. I see you now. Okay.
Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Cynthia, and welcome, everyone. I am looking forward to today's topic. We have spent 2 previous sessions together on the topic of listening and the keys to better listening. In the previous sessions, we covered the motivation to listening. Why do we want to improve our listening? Barriers to listening, and both of these are recorded, as Cynthia mentioned. You can find them on BPUSA's website if you're a member. And today we will finish with Become Better. One of the reasons why this is a 3-part series is because this is something, listening, improving your listening is something that takes time. It's a process. It's not something that you can learn Okay, now I know it, so I can do it. It is something that has to be practiced, just like any other skill that you want to improve. And so today we will proceed with some of the ways to become better after we spent the last month getting rid of some of those annoying habits that get in the way of our listening. And hopefully you had some success with that. Just as a reminder, we talked about the barriers that happen within your mind and within your body, and they include things like interrupting the person speaking, being distracted by your surroundings, whether it's the environment or something physical in your hand like your phone or somebody walking around the room, just being distracted by surroundings. Your wandering mind, and this is something we'll address a little bit more today, what to do about that. Body language that is negative, crossed arms, turning away from a person, and perhaps you have an emotional response to either the speaker or the topic that gets in the way of your listening. And so, Cynthia, let's talk about what people did over the course of the last month and how they which barrier they found most difficult to deal with. And we'll just put these out there, number 1 through 5: interrupting people, distracted by surroundings, thinking of other things, uninviting body language, and letting my emotions get in the way. So if you want to launch that poll, let's take a look and see what people found most difficult.
Okay, I've launched the poll. And if folks would just select one of those things.
One of the numbers 1 through 5.
Gosh, Kathy. Don't we all do all of those things?
Well, at times, that's certainly, I know I do.
Okay, so we have, everyone has voted, and it seems like the one that most people, or in fact the one that everyone selected was interrupting people. I can certainly understand that. My husband says I do that with regularity.
Well, you know, that is pretty common, Cynthia, and I don't know if it's become part of our culture. Think of some of the television talk shows, that's all they do is just interrupt each other. And maybe it's just our fast-paced world where we think that we better get our word in or things are going to move on. Whatever the reason, interrupting people is a barrier to listening, and hopefully it's something that you will choose to improve on and choose not to do quite as often. So thank you for your responses, and we'll hopefully work on that and the other barriers to listening as we continue to work on the things that we'll look at today, which are behaviors that are enhancing your listening skills.
And by the way, it's that I just on that former the phone with phones, it seems that it's getting to a place now where basically it's an expectation that it's okay to use your phone all the time. And it's hard to know because, like, for instance, people will be taking minutes when you're talking, or, they're not always not tuned in. But it is quite a distraction that so many phones are going off and people are using phones and texting and all of that. And
that's so interesting because I was talking with someone the other day. She said that she was it was a hectic morning, you know how it goes with getting the children off to school and figuring out with the babysitter and everything. And her husband was talking with her at the breakfast table, and she is on her phone. And he finally was so frustrated that he said, do you have to use your phone all the time? I'm trying to talk with you. And she said, well, I'm just making a list for the babysitter of the things that we're talking about. Well, she decided that that phone was such a barrier to communication between her and her husband that she decided she was going to get a pad of paper and jot the things down the quote old-fashioned way, because it was something that he would appreciate. So I hear what you're saying about phones and our technology world, but there are alternatives and solutions depending on the type of communication you're having with the people around you.
Perfect example.
Yeah. So anyway, just keep that in mind, that the phone is not the be-all, end-all, and what is your goal? I think that's the bottom line. What is your goal? Is it to take those notes immediately, or is it to make that person you're talking with feel important? So something to keep in mind. And so let's go on to the good listening behaviors. And the reason why we're talking about these is that they contribute to your retention. And really, I think that's part of what those bad behaviors get in the way of, is you're retaining what you're hearing because of the multitasking that's going on. And multitasking, as we learned at the beginning in our first session, is not really, is a fallacy, that you don't listen as well when you're multitasking. So good listening behaviors contribute to retention and enhance communication. And just as a reminder that listening is an art also that requires your attention, your spirit, and that you focus on others. So let's look at the keys to good listening behavior. Well, first of all, we have to know what they are, and then we have to be willing to do the work, willing to incorporate them over time and add them to our repertoire. Nothing will work unless you do, right? So here they are. Let's talk about these one at a time. So looking the speaker in the eye, having eye contact and smiling. Faces are, of course, our most important communication tool. And that face-to-face, even if you're in a room full of people, I know as a public speaker that when I look out over a room and everyone's looking down, that's very discouraging. It's a little unsettling when you aren't getting any feedback from the audience. So even if you are in a crowd and not just in a listening situation one-on-one, it's a good idea to, as much as possible, make eye contact with the speaker and express in your face what you are experiencing from their talk. It's really one of the most obvious but simple habits that we don't think about and don't consider that important, but it is. I remember one time when my daughter was a child, I was standing at the sink washing dishes, and she came in telling me something that was important in her life, and I was nodding, but I continued to wash the dishes. And then finally she said, "Mom, you're not listening to me." And I said, "Yeah, I'm listening to you." She said, "But you're not looking at me." And so that right there just really was an unvarnished truth, if you will. It from the mouth of babes, the truth emerges, doesn't it? And then fast forward to my granddaughter. When she was young, my daughter taught her sign language. And so sign language, we definitely had to look at her, and she had to look at us. So we definitely had more communication. And while we weren't listening with our ears, we were definitely listening with our eyes when we were communicating via sign language. And it really took a lot more of our whole person. It was really quite wonderful. So looking at the speaker and making eye contact is really important. Next is your body language. So one thing you can do is lean forward, lean in toward the person. That definitely shows more engagement. And we're talking about body language and mirroring. Let's talk a little bit more about mirroring. And this is where you mirror the expressions or the feelings of the person speaking. So if they're talking about a distressing topic, for example, you won't be smiling like you would normally, but you would more mirror their feelings and even some of their facial expressions. Sometimes you might even mirror their body language. I know sometimes when I'm sitting, and I'll sit sometimes with my hands behind my head, and I'll notice that a person I'm talking to will then put their hands behind their head. It's just an interesting way of mirroring and connecting with a person. So these are some nonverbal ways that you can connect with the person speaking. Next, let's talk about using that extra brain processing time. And we talked about that. My mind wanders when I'm listening. And there's a reason for that. It's that the average person speaks between 150 and 160 words a minute. But we can process information 2 to 3 times faster than that. And, you know, a little story about that too. I'm from the Midwest, and we speak, probably around the 150 words a minute range. Well, one year we had a teacher come in, a new teacher. She was from New York City. Well, she couldn't believe how slowly we spoke, and she kept moving her hand in a rolling motion to get us to speak faster, and so rather than hurrying up the speaker, I would suggest to use that extra brain time to think about what they're saying. And specifically, here are some things you can do. You can repeat what they said to yourself to try to reinforce what they're saying. You can put what they're saying in that moment into the larger context of the speech and look at a more global picture of the whole topic that they're talking about. You might think about anticipating what they're going to say next, and if you're correct, it'll reinforce that thing that you were thinking of. If you're incorrect, it'll be a switch that you'll have to make your mind switch, and so again, your brain is using some processing time. So these are some ways that you can use that extra brain processing time to reinforce your listening rather than letting your mind wander and have to come back and figure out where you are. Next is to keep an open mind. And what this means is that there's no judgment when you are in a listening situation. No judgment of the person themselves. Maybe they're dressed differently, or they have an accent, or maybe you consider they're too young or too old. And just the word too itself is a judgment. They're too young, too old. So maybe you're judging something about their topic. They're talking about one of your hot buttons, or it's not of interest to you or something like that. But good listeners will keep an open mind and just listen to what the speaker is saying without making a judgment. The next one is to practice intuitive listening. Now, this one I borrowed from my coach's training. I'm a personal coach, and you might expect that listening is a pretty crucial skill for good coaches, and you're right. Well, intuitive listening is where you pay attention not only to what the person is saying, but also to the rest of what's happening in the communication. So their tone of voice, maybe their energy level, listening for the feeling behind the words. So you're listening for the meaning of the message and paying attention to what's not being said, not just to what is being said. So when you listen at the intuitive level, you really deeply validate a person, and especially when you can reflect back. that thing that you intuited, if that's a word. So here's an example. Excuse me a minute. I had someone tell me the other day that I'm mad because my significant other handed me a list of expectations for me while I'm doing this play that I'm directing for the next 2 months. So he has these expectations of me for the next 2 months. And so listening to that, you hear the words, and what I would say is it sounds like you're mad, but also that you feel like your passions aren't important to your significant other. And so you listen beyond what the words are saying and get to the real meaning of why that person is mad. So that's just an example of intuitive listening. And then finally, paraphrase and ask clarifying questions. And this is something that you might do not all the time, but when it's appropriate, you'll be asking those questions and reflecting back what they're saying, clarifying something that they said, or getting a little more detail in a certain area. Asking questions is a great way to show that you're listening, because obviously your question is directly related to what the person is talking about. So Cynthia, let's look at a poll, do a poll again, and find out of these 6 things, which is the first one that you feel like you want to work on. And as a reminder, it's eye contact, body language, brain time, keeping an open mind, intuitive listening, and asking questions. Which one do you feel like you really want to start working on immediately?
I will launch the poll. I will say that it only allowed for 5 options. So the last one got dropped off. If somebody wants that one, they can always just send me a chat and say, I think it's asking questions. Otherwise, just go ahead and select from the 5. Okay, we almost have all the votes in. Okay, there we go, 100%. And what we see is that there was kind of a mixed answer, and it was of the first 3: eye contact, engaging, body language, and brain time.
Well, good. That's perfectly fine. It's whatever is for you personally the thing that will make the most difference in your listening going forward. So that's great. And I encourage you to actually put that into practice and work on the thing that's most important to you.
I will say this, Kathy, when I heard you talk about brain time, that's sort of new to me. The idea that our brain processes faster than we listen and people speak, to me explains why so many people have a hard time staying focused on the speaker and what they're saying, because the brain is racing. So having strategies for dealing with the brain processing, those were actually really good strategies. And it made me think that you almost need sort of this other self that's being a controller, watching you, listening, and saying, are you making eye contact? And how's your body language? And wait a minute, why are you judging? You should be keeping an open mind. And wow, I see what they're saying, and I'm hearing something that I need to confirm. So sounds like we need a controller in there that's kind of maybe a traffic cop that's helping you stay focused.
Well, and maybe that's a good use for some of that extra brain time.
Exactly. That's what made me think about.
Keep that controller, focused on the other things. All right. Well, thank you again for your responses on where you're going to focus your attention. And I wanted to return, Cynthia, just back to where we started in our very first session as to why we want to become a better listener. Why are we doing this? Why are we going through all of these things that sound like work, which they are? And as a reminder, let's just again look at why we're doing this. Because we want these things. We want to build trust. We want to improve our relationships. We want to increase productivity. We want to learn new things. We want to enhance our customer satisfaction. So I just wanted to touch on this again to just as people are thinking about the things that they need to do, either eliminate things that are barriers or add things that are good listening behaviors, that there's a reason why we're doing this, and they're all good. These are all, listening is the key to effective communication, even more than speaking, which is the final reason why we want to become better listeners. And as you know, if you've been at the other sessions, I always assign some homework because, as you're probably guessing, listening is work. And so here's our homework from this point forward. First of all, arm yourself with some conversation questions. This will help you to get the other person talking and allow you to practice some of your new listening skills. I have some suggestions for you here, things that you can just practice and keep at your fingertips. Here's one. What do you think about, and whether it's you're at a game, you're at an event, pick anything. What do you think about such and such? And people will have an opinion. They will answer you. Another suggestion is tell me about your work. Tell me about your family. How about this one? How are you connected to? How are you connected to the bride and groom? How are you connected to the speaker? What brings you here today? Or bring me up to date on your project. These are just a few things that you can use as conversation questions. If you want some more questions, I wanted to recommend my friend Bob Teedy. He has a website called Leading with Questions, a website and a blog. You can, on his website, you can download his book, which is called Great Leaders Ask Questions. Again, his name is Bob Teedy, that's Tiede, and his website is leadingwithquestions.com. So arm yourself with some conversation questions. Next, practice in various settings. At work, for example, you might say the next time you go to a meeting, say, I'm going to use my extra brain processing time to reinforce the speaker's message and make sure that you really understand what they're saying. Or you might say, I'm going to ask some clarifying questions if I don't understand things in this meeting today. Maybe in a social situation, you're going to say to yourself, okay, I'm going into this social situation. I'm going to make eye contact and smile and have relaxed body language when my friends are talking or people are talking. In a business situation, you might say, I'm going to practice conversation starter questions until they become second nature and use them at this conference I'm going to, or this chamber event, or other times I want to practice listening or learning something new. And actually, Cynthia, this is what we teach at the Asking Academy. We have a specific question for each step of the way, so that our clients, when they're in a conversation with a prospective donor, the questions feel natural and come naturally. And so this is something that I suggest you do when you're arming yourself, is to practice those and practice them in various settings, and you'll be able to focus on your listening instead of on your am I asking the right question. And as you might expect, I'm asking you to gradually eliminate your poor habits. You've been working on those, but review them again and work on them some more. And then add your good listening behaviors as quickly as possible. Incorporate these into your listening, all the things that we talked about today. And finally, become a better listener. Thank you. That brings us to the end today, so thank you for your kind attention. And just remember that wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would have preferred to talk. It's hard to do, but worth it.
Thank you, Kathy. And we're going to go ahead. I don't know, Kathy, there should be your phone number and your email address at the bottom of the screen. There it goes. Y'all can write down.
Mm-hmm.
And let me let you know that there is a handout. If you look on your control panel for GoToWebinar, there is a handout from today's talk, and you can choose that and download that, and that will give you information on Kathy as well. And you can go through and fill out the spots from what you learned from today. Kathy, we thank you. This is, seemingly such an easy topic. And a lot of people think, well, I'm such a great listener. We all think we're great listeners. However, unless you hear that pretty much on a daily basis, I can guarantee you that you probably need to practice up on those listening skills. And
right.
You've given us some insights into why maybe it's hard to be a good listener, such as brain time, and ways that we can improve our listening. So we appreciate the 3 webinars, and I want to make sure that everyone knows when you become a member, if you'll just flip to that next slide, Kathy, and we'll leave it in your hands to flip. There we go.
Sure.
You can become a member. We call them pollinators because we're pollinating great ideas to grow on. And it's one step. You just go to BPUSA, become a member of businessperformanceusa.org/member, and that'll take you right to the member page. All we ask for is your email address and your name. And I want to let you know that we are launching special interest groups in 2016. And special interest groups are a way that you can connect with others around particular topics. For instance, I'll be leading topics on quality, because my expertise is in the Lean and Six Sigma quality arena, as well as cultural excellence. And so that'll be the area of my focus. We have folks that are interested in developing leadership skills, so the special interest groups will be talking about leadership skills. I'll be talking about all things quality. In fact, I should name it that, I guess, all things quality. And these special interest groups give you a chance to meet and reach out to folks that you want to learn from, and that you want to mentor, and you want to contribute your expertise to. And we'll be launching those in 2016. And if you'll go one more slide, Kathy. We want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Happy and prosperous New Year, of course, and just thank all of our trusted members for the support we've gotten in launching BPUSA, and there are more great things to come. So with that, we're going to go ahead and end the webinar today, and thank you again, Kathy. We look forward to hosting y'all in the future at future events and with special interest groups and so forth and so on. So go out and make it a great day, and have a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year. Thanks, everyone. And with that, I'll be ending today's broadcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.